So we've got a pretty cool agenda today. So thank you to our speakers, who we will introduce in a second. But just a quick overview of today's TUG before we jump into the content. So in terms of today's TUG, we have Christian presenting on transforming market surveillance with Tableau. And thank you, Christian, for reaching out. And it was great to see you. It seems ages ago at Vegas now that we all caught up. But it was great to see you then. It's great to see you on the TUG. So thanks for supporting us. And then we will hand over to Praveen and Amar, who will share their Viz reflections and showcase their recent Project Health Viz creations as supported by the project that Lindsay runs. So just before we jump in, we just wanted to share some community highlights from across the community since we last met, because it's a few months ago. So first off, just some showcasing of some Tableau Vizes, Lindsay.
Yeah. Awesome. So there have been a ton of fantastic health visualizations recently. Obviously, with the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen a ton of visualizations related to that you can find on Tableau. Tableau Public's page, they have a whole resource and dashboard collection of those particular vizes. And then we have a couple others we wanted to showcase here. Mark Reed did a recent one about how the world has changed since 1962, similar to the Gapminder type of visualization. Neil Richards had a Viz of the Day, access to sanitation services, which was a Project Health Viz data set recently. And then Gwynlyn Lockwood had deprivation and childhood obesity in England, which is a fantastic, using some of the hex map concepts and highlights in there. And we also had another recent Viz of the Day. One of our speakers, Praveen, had a recent one for the Teladoc stock prices. So that was another fantastic healthcare Viz of the Day. So great job, everybody.
Cool, thanks, Lindsay. Please do thoroughly recommend, check out the Tableau Public Gallery. There's also a COVID gallery on Tableau Public at the minute as well, which has got some pretty informative visualizations. And also you can search for the popular hashtags. You can search for Project Health Viz now using the Tableau functions, Tableau Public search functionality. So do check it out because you get some great inspiration there. So Mark, over to you for the Tableau Talent Finder.
Just want to throw this out there for anyone on the call. We do know that due to COVID-19, a lot of people have unfortunately lost jobs, been put on furlough, pay cuts, whatever it might be. We created this Tableau Talent Finder. It's just a Tableau Public dashboard to hopefully connect people looking for work with those in the Tableau community that are trying to hire folks who have Tableau skills and experience. If you are somebody that would be interested in trying to take advantage of this, just either one, look for it on Tableau Public. You can do a search for the Tableau Talent Finder, or if you're on Twitter, you can find me at Mark Conley 2, and I have the tweet there with the info for it. The way that this works, it's just a Google form that you can fill out with a little bit of info about you, and then it'll update on the Tableau Public Viz for people to look at. And also keep in mind, if you're not an actual organization that's hiring, but you know of people that might be looking, it's still an opportunity to help those out in our Tableau community. I'll pass it back to you, Simon.
Cool. Cheers, Mark, and thank you for doing that. I think it's been really well received, looking at the amount of retweets and comments you've had in it. So fantastic initiative. And then just to end on the community inspiration, we just wanted to recognize the challenges of COVID-19. A lot of our community content is going virtual, and we just wanted to give a shout out to Amanda, Jordan and the team in Tableau for all of the support that they're giving us as a community in terms of enabling us with a platform to continue to reach out and connect with each other. So just a few specific shout outs. The Data Fam Community Jam it's easier said than done, is going on at the minute, and that's happening at least normally once every week, towards the end of the week. And that is run by the Tableau Fringe Festival in partnership with Tableau. And I think they're getting up to about 3,000 to 4,000 people attend at any one session. And that's usually an hour to 2 hours long. You get community presentations hosted by people such as Sarah Bartlett, Kevin Flalage, Emily, and I'm going to miss some as well, Lorna. But a great record, and also they're all recorded as well. So do check that out. That's kind of our way from Tableau in terms of keeping the energy high and allowing people to learn still whilst restricted perhaps on their work movements. It's also to give a shout out as well. Check out the Tableau YouTube page, because now that a lot of tugs, in fact all tugs, are going virtual for the time being, actually all of the recordings pretty much globally of all of the virtual tugs are actually available on Tableau's YouTube page. So if you have got a speaker or you have got content that you missed out on and you want to check it out, now you haven't missed it. You can actually watch it at your leisure via Tableau's YouTube page. And all you have to do is go to the videos tab and all of the recent tugs are at the top. There's also the If Data Could Talk series that is being hosted by Andy Cockgreave. And Andy's joined by viz experts from around the world, and they talk about recent vizzes and recent concepts. And there's some great discussion there to inspire and educate us all. And then lastly, specific to healthcare, there was also the recent virtual healthcare data summit that was hosted by Tableau. And again, there is a recording of that online if you wanted to watch it. So yeah, it's frustrating times at the minute. We can't be together and we can't all see each other in person. But the flip side of that is we do get to enjoy some great content online that can inspire us all to be better at helping people see and understand their data. And then just to finish on the intro slides, just a quick call out that if you would like to talk or be featured at our next Health Tug, we are hoping to have one in Q3. So if you would like to, please don't hesitate to reach out to Lindsay, Mark, myself, or Nicole, who unfortunately can't be joining us today, or tweet us at Health Tug, and we'll reach out to you and we'll explore how we can accommodate you within a future agenda. So we're always looking for new speakers, so please don't be shy. I promise we'll all be kind and we'll support you along the way. But it's a great opportunity to showcase what you're doing within your organisation to benefit everyone else. And on that note, I will hand over to Christian, who will be our first speaker for the day.
Thank you, Simon. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And once I'm up and running in presentation mode, can I just get one of the other panelists to confirm that I am indeed sharing my presentation?
Yep, and I'll just add for everyone on the call, while Christian's presenting, we will do a Q&A at the end of the session. So please use the Q&A feature in Zoom. We'll try to keep an eye out for the chat, but if you have questions, try to put it into the Q&A and we'll wrap up there, okay?
We can see
Christian, we can hear you and we can see you.
Cool.
And you're in presentation, you're good to go.
Okay. I just wanted to start off by thanking Simon, Mark, Lindsay, and who am I missing? Nicole, who's not here, just for the opportunity to present. I got to meet at least three. I didn't get to meet Mark, but all of these folks at the conference last November, and we started talking about possibly doing a presentation at some point. And 6 months later, here we are, and I finally get to present. So thank you for the opportunity to present today. And as the agenda indicated, I'm going to be presenting on transforming on-market surveillance with Tableau. The agenda that I'll be presenting through is here. Provide some brief context about who I am. I think it's always helpful to know who you're listening to during a presentation. So provide a little bit of background about me. Then I'll go into some background about the company I work for, Roche, and particularly tissue diagnostics, which is the branch of the organization that I work for. I'll talk about the Tableau journey that we've been on since I've been working here. And as part of that, talk about some principles for user adoption that we found to be effective for engaging our user community. I'll conclude the presentation just by talking a little bit about the future, some things that we're currently working on, and sort of some of the next level things that we're starting to look at in terms of analytics and data visualization at Roche. All right. So about me, my name is Christian Felix. I've put together a Tableau visual resume. Some of you may be familiar with the visual resume. Tableau has a very nice gallery of resumes on their website. I jumped on the bandwagon last year and put together my own, inspired by various ones I saw in the community. And I really found it to be a good reflective exercise in terms of some of my career experiences and some of the things that I've done over the course of my career. I also found it to be a fun process, right? So as opposed to just a very bland white and black document, you get to put some color to it, you get to add some design to it, and you get to make it your own. I wanted to talk briefly about some of the things I've done over my career, just to give you a sense of how I've arrived where I am. My background is actually in finance. I have a master's and bachelor's degree in finance from the University of Arizona. Upon graduation, I went to work at a company called Raytheon, so a big defense contractor here in Tucson, Arizona. I started working in finance. Over the course of my career, over the years, I sort of veered towards business process improvement projects, collaborating with IT. Eventually, I found myself in IT at Raytheon. And my first exposure to the world of data visualization was with a software product, which some of you may be familiar with, called Excelsius. So this was SAP Business Objects, I think one of the very forerunners in terms of their exploration of data visualization. And it really sparked something in me that allowed me to see the possibilities of combining quantitative presentation with art. Albeit at a very basic and rudimentary form at that point. But as I was working at Raytheon, I started doing a distance master's program at Texas A&M in analytics. And the coursework was primarily done in SAS, but as a student, I was able to download a free one-year trial version of Tableau. This was back in 2013. And I just found that using Tableau made my data exploration much more productive and efficient. So I fell in love with the tool at that point. Ultimately, as part of the IT team at Raytheon, I was part of rolling Tableau out to the business for their self-service BI initiative. Shortly thereafter, a couple of years, I made the transition to Roche. So Roche, as some of you may know, is a Swiss-German company, but we do have a subsidiary here in Tucson, Arizona, that was originally called Ventana Medical Systems. So we have about 1,200 people here in Tucson. And as part of my job here at Roche, I basically work in Tableau every day. So producing analytics, reporting, trying to provide information resources for the business to better understand the business. I have this little snapshot of this book called Range. I read it earlier this year and it really resonated with me, and perhaps it may resonate with you. It basically looks at the generalist, right? There perhaps is a stereotype that says it's the specialist in today's age that does well, that you need to specialize to certain extents to grow your career. But that's not me, and that really never has been. As I progress in my career, I found that I like to seek out new challenges, new things to learn, and that leads me to different courses. So I start in finance, I make my way to IT. I now work in the business and quality at Roche, still doing analytics. So I've jumped around a bit, and all the while I've sort of brought these cross-domain analogies to my current role that were described in the book. So highly recommend the read if you have time, if you need a summer book to read, Range by David Epstein. I'm involved in the Tableau public community. I participate in Project HealthViz, love it. It's a great project, one that I particularly enjoy because it allows me to visualize and be creative with data sets that pertain to health, something that impacts us all. I got involved with the Tableau public community about probably about a year and a half ago. I've been using Tableau for quite some time before that, but was really looking to gain some new motivation, I'll say, gain some inspiration from outside sources. And the Tableau community has been a great way to do that. So I highly encourage you to get involved, check out Lindsay's project, and get creative yourself. And yeah, it's a great project. I've had a few viz of the days, reverse chronological order. So the first two were in regards to fire. I was wondering if I needed to create fire data visualizations to get viz of the days. That turned out not to be so. I've produced the last two. This one was on the opioid epidemic in the state of Arizona. And this most recent one last month was just on looking at confirmed case counts of the coronavirus in the US and looking at the sustained trajectories. Our county is experiencing a downward trend or an upward trend, looking at that 14-day period. That's part of the gating criteria. I also co-lead the Tucson Tableau user group. So this is a relatively new group, but we've done some really cool things in the past year. We've met at the University of Arizona, partnered with a student group there. So we've got a lot of student engagement along with industry engagement. We had Steve Wexler come out earlier this year and do a Zen Master presentation on dashboarding best practices. And like many other user groups, we've recently delved into the virtual world last month with Amanda McCulloch. I think that's how you say her last name. Sorry if I mispronounced it, but did a presentation on best practices in regards to public health data. All right, so that's a little bit about me. What about Roche? So we are the world's largest biotech company. We have 17 biopharmaceuticals on the market. Half of the compounds in our product pipeline are biopharmaceuticals, and we aim to be innovative and to bring to market better targeted therapies. So personalized healthcare. So this is in recognition of we're each extremely unique. For my headache, for example, I may respond to Tylenol. Another individual may respond to aspirin. Based off of that understanding, our goal is to innovate in the area of personalized healthcare, bringing targeted therapies to patients based off of their unique DNA and makeup. We've also been in the news recently. Some of you may be tuned into what's going on in the testing domain, but we've released a couple series of tests, most recently an antibody test that detects whether or not an individual has ever been exposed and developed antibodies to the COVID-19 virus. And in March, we released another test to determine whether or not the virus was active in an individual. So these are things that we've brought to the public, and it's a time where it's a privileged place to be, really, in terms of work. When a lot of people are out of work or looking for jobs or have been furloughed, it makes you feel proud to work for a company that is releasing tests that will hopefully mitigate the spread of the virus. So we've been in the news recently. So that's Roche, but it's a big company. What about my job specifically? So I do not work on the pharmaceutical side. I work on the tissue diagnostics side. These are some images of our instruments. So these are instruments that you'll find in clinics, hospitals, pathologists' office throughout the world. They do automated tissue staining. So if you or someone you know gets diagnosed with cancer, you'll go and likely get a biopsy. That biopsy will then be put on a testing carousel and will be stained with reagent to determine whether or not what you have is actually cancer. So our instruments really automate that process, make it much more efficient and accurate, and we sell them all over the world. Really, the story of the company is a very interesting one, an inspiring one. It was founded by a pathologist at the University of Arizona named Dr. Tom Grogan, and he started developing these instruments basically in his garage. This was back, I believe, in 1985. The company has grown significantly since then. In 2009, I believe it was acquired by Roche, and that obviously, with the large company, gave us access to new markets and new pathways for doing business. So the title of my presentation is Transforming On-Market Surveillance with Tableau. Some of you may be wondering, what exactly is market surveillance? So this is a definition from the European Commission website, and basically provides a summary of what it is. So it's basically looking on the market to determine whether or not the products that you have on the market are performing as you say they should. So some of these processes for us are highly regulated. We're an audited company, and so we have to do some of these things per regulation. Others we just do to make sure we understand how our products are performing, to go above and beyond to make sure we understand our quality and where we have things that need to be improved. This is just perhaps a timely and pertinent way for me to maybe give you a better idea of how we're using Tableau to do on-market surveillance. So this is a publicly available infographic that is on the Roche website that talks about how the SARS-CoV-2 test that we released detects the virus, and it just walks through some of the steps. And so really how it progresses is you get a swab, it's taken to a lab for analysis. There's lab professionals, they prepare the swab, they process it, they get it ready to be processed on one of our instruments. It's then loaded onto one of our instruments. The system will process the assay, and reagents will be applied to it to determine whether or not the virus exists. And really where I come in is this process, steps 3, 4, and 4. If there are any issues that the customer detects with the process as it's supposed to work, they will either call for a field service engineer to come out and service the instrument, they'll file a complaint, or they'll file an inquiry, and I will then get that data. Our team will get that data, we'll analyze it, we'll produce visualizations, we'll produce information resources that the business can use to understand what's going on. So we'll look at failure modes, we'll look at cause codes, things like that. We'll look at text descriptions that the customer has entered to describe the issue. All the information that the customer provides us to basically help us understand what's going on. When you think on market surveillance, I know sometimes I think looking at social listening, things like that, Twitter, Facebook. It's sort of a different industry where those things don't perhaps have the value as they would in other industries. It's not retail. Our consumers are pathologists, our clinics, and so they're not necessarily as active in those channels. So we find the most direct way for us to really understand what's going on with our products and instruments is directly from the customer. Okay, this was a roadmap when I started when the team was sort of getting up and running almost 5 years ago at this point, this was almost a napkin drawing, if you want to call it that, of really how I foresaw our Tableau and analytics roadmap unfolding. So this is a common story. I think if you've been around the Tableau community and attended some of these presentations, a lot of these things that needed to be upgraded were in Excel, right? They were manual. It was sort of the process where you're contacting a data gatekeeper, you're extracting, you're massaging in Excel, and individuals are doing that in their own silos over and over again. So the first step for us was really to use Tableau to automate these processes, to standardize them, to make them easily accessible, and to just make these things much more robust. So those are the things in gray that you're looking at. The things in pink were new development things that we wanted to develop that we thought we could over time using Tableau and some of the other tools. So we didn't set any definitive time or milestones. It was just sort of, this is where we want to go. Let's start marching towards it. This is how we went about getting there. So I'm not in IT, I'm in the business. The value there is that I'm embedded directly in the meetings that our people are complaining or investigating the issues about the products. So I hear directly from the customer because I'm part of the team with the internal customers. And so that helps me understand the business a little better to then develop in Tableau. So we leverage an agile iterative delivery methodology. So no traditional waterfall requirement documents or project plans. It's iterate, and get feedback from the customer and iterate some more. One of the things that we've always tried to do is develop with the idea that an individual going to our dashboards can get an answer within 3 clicks. So they'll go directly to the dashboard. They'll get sort of a high-level situational awareness right off the bat. If they need to, they can click to drill down to get more detail. And if they need to, after that, they can click to either extract into CSV or get more detail. Speaking of Agile, what is the state of your dashboard documentation? This was something that we talked about as a team a while back, and it really resonated, and I thought it'd be fun to share. So in a traditional world, it's extensive and hard to maintain. Think traditional IT dashboard documentation. If your team is relatively more agile, the documentation is just enough. When you discover something's missing, you add it and you keep it up to date. If your dashboard documentation is just bad, it's probably outdated, or it needs to be updated badly. If it's just pure chaos, then there's none. Haven't you read the manifesto? And that resonated with me because for a while, particularly at the start of when we came on board, we were just in hyper development mode. We were really developing things as fast as we could, and we didn't take the time to document things as well as we should. Recently, over the last couple of years, as we've become more mature, we've started to put together really robust documentation surrounding all our dashboards. So if they needed to be, they could be transferred to any other owners. So over the course of the nearly 5 years, we validated nearly 50 dashboards that are used globally across Roche. We have a formal validation process that, of course, accompanies many of the user acceptance testing protocols that you probably use as well in your own companies, but we also have a formal validation process with signatures, business quality, IT signatures necessary for our business. One of the things that we've implemented, and this is hats off to the great, really the good work that the enterprise BI team has done. We've just leveraged it, but really standardizing around layout of dashboards, iconography, font, color schemes. And we found that it really does help user adoption. All right, so when you have a consistent layout, people know where to go to get information about the dashboard. People know where to go to click to contact you directly if they need to. People know where to find things. So having a consistent template has been very helpful for us in terms of user adoption. One of the things I'll say about some of the things we've been developed, this data is all notional, by the way, and the lines have been anonymized per our regulatory guidance, but some of the most widely used dashboards that we have in place are the simplest, right? And I think this is probably true for many organizations. A lot of the people that consume our dashboards are not data people. They don't want to dive deeply. They want to really look at the dashboard, see a very easy to understand trend, and then go about their job. And so we use bar charts quite a bit. We use maps in case people want to have the option to see things geographically. And in some cases, we'll use small multiples and things like that. But for the most part, we try and keep things simple. This is another example. So bar charts, spark lines, KPI signals, bar and bar charts. But really, this is intended to give us just a high level understanding of across the fleet how our instruments are performing. It's meant to be very structured, organized well, such that the consumer can look at it and look at various different metrics, but each of those metrics are easy enough to understand that it doesn't take a lot of digging to understand the trajectory of the performance. You'll see the icons. All of these can click through to expand to a larger chart in case the individual wanted to print it out on a very nice PowerPoint presentation. And we allowed the user to select targets in case they wanted to save a custom view and then have those targets tracked on a monthly basis as the data updates daily. So we're looking at things that are pretty standard in our industry: mean time between failure, dispatch rates, repair visits. This initial quality monitoring is really trying to understand how well our instruments do upon install. Are they having issues within the first X number amount of days upon installation? Again, user adoption principle, keep things simple as possible. We found that helps users understand and use our dashboards much more readily. So the last one we looked at was really looking at the fleet. This one allows the consumer to look at a specific instrument and get all sorts of contextual information about an instrument. Understanding how many cases, the time associated with cases, looking at parts that have been replaced. Again, all this data is notional or anonymized, but really taking a deep dive at a specific instrument to understand how it's performing at the customer site. So Tableau has allowed us to really create these just amazing, really mediums of information for an individual to come and get a one-stop shop for comprehensive information on an instrument. So before, an individual would have to go to multiple data sources, download, extract, and then combine. This is all in one place. And it's been incredibly powerful for us and for our business. We've created portals. We try and organize them in a way that individuals can know where to go to find the report they're looking for. This is a Tableau dashboard, but it just categorizes all our reports in a way that is intuitive and allows a user to click through and then access the dashboards that pertain to that category. So accessibility, we're trying to make our tools as easily accessible as possible. And part of that, we've found using Google Chrome extensions to be helpful. So one of the Chrome extensions just allows a user to have a little extension in their header, click on it, and then directly access our portal, as well as other resources like training videos, our Google Plus community, data source, health information, directly within a click. So again, trying to make things as easily accessible as possible, such that they don't have to go out of their way to access the dashboard. I know this is hard to decipher, but you're looking at a Salesforce case. We use Salesforce, and this is another example of a Chrome extension where the little chart icon basically allows a user directly in a case to click on the icon to then bring up within the case without having to go to the Tableau server a dashboard. So it's really embedding Tableau directly in the user's workflow, again, just to make things more accessible and easy to use. The last thing was just building community. So we have a Google Plus community that we keep up to date, both in terms of news specific to Roche and our deployment. We also have some things external because we want to make sure that people are just tuned in to what's going on in the broader Tableau community and data visualization community. So I'm active in that. We do webcasts. We have our own webcast and video portal channel. You can see over here. So we just publish 1 to 2 minute videos that a user can at any time go to the portal and view. It really is much more efficient than describing the issue over and over again to different users. So we just record videos and put them out here. We started doing what we call podcasts. And really what these are is we've called them dashboarding in the real world. So myself and another developer, we're on a virtual meeting with a dashboard user, and we're just having that user walk us through how they use the tool. And then what we found is that oftentimes the dashboard does things that we've developed into it that much of the user community doesn't even know about. So after the individual has given us their use case, we then demo some lesser known functionality of the dashboard. And all in all, it's about a 10 to 15 minute web video. And so call it a podcast, call it a video. But we just do these things to highlight specific dashboards and then post them on our channel just to help people understand more about our tools. It also increases ownership. So if you get a user that uses your tool talking and advocating for your dashboard in a portal, it's good for building community and creating a sense of ownership. So yeah, ownership, last user adoption principle. In terms of the future, we've started doing things like mass text translation. For a global company, we get a lot of text in foreign languages, and there's a process that our case handlers have had to use to really take text that contains valuable information into Google Translate and then parse through it. And so we explored using various APIs, and all were cost prohibitive. And so we found a way to do it using some Python scripting, some native Google Sheet functionality, and then our own database to really do it at scale. And so that's helped people quite a bit to have all those cases translated into English. Once they've been translated into English, we've started doing some really some more advanced text parsing. So we have text descriptions that are paragraphs sometimes, and using some code to really parse through those and summarize what that paragraph of text describes. So I've hit my 30 minutes. I've gone very fast, but I want to thank you all for your attention. Thank you again, Mark, Nicole, Lindsay, and the team, Simon, for allowing me to present. And I will open it up for questions if there are any, and turn it over.
Thanks, Christian. We did have a couple come in. I'm going to start with one quick note. If you missed it at the beginning, we do record these sessions and they'll be made available on our community forum, and I believe they get posted on YouTube. The one quick question for you, Christian, are you comfortable sharing these slides as part of that release, or just keep it to the video?
Yeah, let me get back with you on that. I worked with my legal team just to make sure that everything I was sharing was good, but prior to distributing via YouTube, it should be okay. But let me get back with you.
All right, cool. Then we'll jump into some of the questions that we had. So one quick one, customers for Roche, are those primarily providers or labs, is the question?
Primarily labs. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Moving through another hopefully quick one. Are you guys using Tableau server or Tableau online? How are you, I guess, hosting the solutions that you have?
Yeah, we have one of the largest Tableau server implementations. For a 90,000 person company, we have quite a few users. So we have various servers based off of regions, and based off of the regional Tableau servers, we have various sites. So trying to partition production, test, sandbox servers. So yes, it's all via Tableau server.
Cool. And I'm just like working my way through. I think there were some questions around the portal specifically. One, was that something that you guys at Roche built internally, or did you use like a third party to build it? If you don't mind kind of talking about the actual portal that you highlighted.
Yeah, so those are Tableau dashboards. So those are all built internally. And they're just Tableau dashboards. So we are starting to look into Interworks. They have portal tools that we may bring on this year. But right now we're using, our team at least are using just internally built Tableau dashboards as reporting portals.
Cool. And then we'll do two more and then turn it back or swing into the second half of our presentation today. So I think that one's a quick thing. People had asked whether or not you'd be able to share some of the template dashboards. I think some people really like that, and also had questions around even that what seems like super simple functionality, but is a really cool thing to share, is how you guys have some dashboards set up where you can click on an icon and it changed the report. So you could go from like map to bar and vice versa. There are a couple different questions around if you could share any of that, but again, I'm assuming that's in a similar conversation of other content that you'll have to connect with.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share some of that. I will say that functionality is probably maybe not obsolete at this point with some of the newer functionality in more recent versions of Tableau, but it's all driven by action filters. I believe there's probably easier ways to do it with some of the newer versions, but like many other companies, we are a few versions behind. We're on 2019 at this point, but I can certainly share with you the functionality that was demonstrated in the presentation if you reach out to me offline.
Cool. And we'll do one more. I think it may be like a couple sentences or less. You mentioned having a platform for people to get experience with or get understanding about the dashboards that have already been built. But is there internal training that occurs at Roche? Like, how do people become, I guess, get trained up beyond that?
Yeah. There's really good training actually. So like other big companies, we have self-service users, which self-service developers, which our team are a group of, but we also have a centrally managed team, and that team is responsible for a lot of the enterprise training. And so there's different levels of training that individuals have to go through that will grant them access to certain rights in terms of publishing, owning, viewing, things like that. And it's all very well done. So I applaud the enterprise team that puts it together.
Yeah, and we did have quite a few different questions that have come through. I think we mentioned before, but we should be able to get a transcript of this for you, Christian. I know you do have to run, but we'll follow up after the meeting.
Okay.
To share and see if we can get you connected with some of the folks that still have some outstanding questions. But thank you so much for taking the time. This was great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll turn it over.
Cool. And Lindsay, do you want to queue up our Project Health Biz folks?
Yeah, you got it. All right. Let me pull up my notes. All right. Thanks so much, Christian. It's great hearing from you and hearing that, what Roche is all doing. So next we're going to pivot over to two folks from the Tableau community who participated in Project Health Biz and have two great presentations on recent healthcare visualizations they've done. The first is Praveen Jose, and Praveen is a data visualization specialist and user experience designer at the Bosch Center for Artificial Intelligence. And he specializes in corporate design, branding, modern UI, and crafting user-specific UI for business intelligence. And so he is going to share a recent COVID-19 visualization and specifically about creating an impact with brand colors in your dashboards in healthcare. And so with that, Praveen.
Yep, I'm on. Okay, sure. Thank you. So thank you, Lindsay, Mark, and Simon, and the panelists available. It's really an honor to have present something to such a cool community, and well, it's really great to be online and virtually connected to everyone as well. That's one of the best things that's happening today to me. So let me get started. So I'll stick to the 20-minute schedule, and I'll be presenting one of my dashboards that I have, and I thought, presenting the dashboard alone is not going to add value. So I was like, okay, why not bring out one of the aspects that led to creating the dashboard, and that would be, helping people know how I approach to creating the dashboard. So yeah, pretty much. So I'll be talking about creating an impact with brand colors in dashboards. Specific to healthcare, and yeah, so that's the topic. And I'll just start off with a personal introduction. My name is Praveen Jose. I've been working in the business scape for last 5 years. I started off with working with a real estate company in the United States, and then I moved on to work with airline-based research for Lufthansa and Emirates, and then that was sort of like a pilot one. Then I moved on to a permanent project with Unilever for an year, and post which I was into more of consulting based for Toyota and multiple companies. And then I worked 2 years straight for Lincoln Financial Corporation, based out of US, and then post that I jumped into working at a full-time role with the Bosch Center for Artificial Intelligence. So I work in the Bosch Center for Artificial Intelligence as a data visualization specialist and user experience designer. I mostly focus on conceptualizing BI design for a generic user. So when it becomes more generic, you gotta be more specific with common UI styles. Hence, my specialization comes into more of corporate branding, designing, catering user-specific dashboards so that they make more relevance and also add into a common UI form. So, well, that's on a very brief. What we do in Bosch is more of, building AI components and embedding into every aspect of Bosch components. That's one of the mottos this year that came out, that by 2025, every product in Bosch will have AI components embedded in it. So our team is one of the official AI divisions of Bosch, and we are leaders in fields of mobility solutions, automotive manufacturing, family, equipments, household equipments, and various other technical research fields. And recently, we ventured into a huge healthcare division, which is enabling companies and people worldwide to ease the testing for COVID-19. We recently had a manufacturing division set across the world for manufacturing masks and personal safety equipments for healthcare people and personals taking care in that. So that's the recent development. So coming into branding and guide, this one, I'll just quickly jump onto the agenda. How to select simple brand colors. That's obviously the most difficult question to answer, because branding is very specific to a product. And when we say selecting out brand colors, it should be authentic. It should speak the native language of the people who are trying to access the dashboards, and it should be introspective, intuitive, and it should be more of making the user believe that this is something made in-house, and not something that is cooked up in some college kid sitting down and developing something. It's more professional. People should feel that. So brand is something that, and colors are something that really adds on to the value of reselling or representing a dashboard to a larger community. And that's why brands really work there, because if it's a smaller community, we can cater our dashboard, which is very simple, and we don't really have to do much of engineering. We just have charts which make sense, and it works out. But we are having a community which is huge, which is large, which are spread across the globe, different languages, diversity. Then a brand is really important, and it's not only for building dashboards internal to a company. It could be even building dashboards for a community. Like for a global community, then we need to understand what sort of people are across the globe and stick to a specific branding so that it applies. So that's why my first topic is sticking to simple brand colors, and I'll explain what that means. Out of this, forming a color palette, for building a dashboard, the primary thing is settling down upon colors. We don't really need to populate a dashboard filled with colors. That really be chaotic. People don't really like chaotic stuff. The dashboards need to be simple, legible enough, and make more sense. And the colors are something that brings out the ease for people to recognize patterns, text, sort of more of adding ease to the user. So how do we form a very cool and comfortable color palette? That's the second topic. And then finishing off with an example of how this has applied, for me to create out a dashboard for COVID-19, and what sort of impact I'm able to create within my organization at the moment, right? So what are simple brand colors? Going into that, we see this is one of the simplest design that I brought in for selecting out brand colors. Now, this is called an emotional wheel, what I call it personally, at least. It's tagging colors and gradients to emotional attachments that we have. And usually dashboards, I would say dashboards are physical or virtual extensions of human life, and we use dashboards every day, every hour. There are people who use it every minute. So they can't be something that look alien. That should be exactly an extension of ourselves, and it should speak what we are looking for in a dashboard. Now, if I'm building a dashboard which is showing something on an element on the dashboard that's portraying something which is positive, then I would definitely stick on to the upper end. But if I'm sticking on to a lower end of the wheel, that is the other half of the semicircle, then I would really want to build a dashboard that's trying to highlight positivity or trying to show people that there is a positive outcome to the upcoming future. So that's how this wheel determines what human behavior or human stimulus is related to colors. Now, how can this help us in creating brand colors? So that's what described in the right. So from this, you can design brand colors in a way that if you're building a simple dashboard, you can take up one color as a dominant one and one as a highlighting feature. So usually what happens is we build dashboards which are very specific. And when we have dashboards which are specific, they should have very specific KPIs. And highlighting those KPIs should be the primary objective because users are looking for that, and business at the end is run based on those KPIs. So eventually, if you are selecting brand colors, let's say out of this wheel, we select 2 colors, or we select one color for the dominant base and one for the highlight. But usually for me, I usually stick to selecting the highlight color from the wheel, and I stick to any other color from the virtual end of the color spectrum as a background one. So that why it helps me is it helps me to give a base to my design, which keeps my design very focused. And the highlight one really brings out the information that I want to showcase to the user. So I'm achieving 2 things here. One is that I'm able to bring out a confident, simple UI, which is built on base of this wheel, which really shows out that I'm able to present out my information in the real sense, and also bring out the project out the right KPIs to the user so that they are able to make out what information we are trying to convey with the dashboard. So going forward with this one, how do we form a color palette? Now, I chose the green from the previous color palette as the highlight color, and the other colors are actually my support colors and my base colors. So how this is really helping, how am I forming a color palette? So what I usually do is find the colors relevant to and the background colors relevant from the wheel. That's one. I use more of Adobe. I'm a huge Adobe fan. I've been using Adobe from past 4 years. It's exceptionally cool to work with Adobe as a product. I started off working with Adobe Illustrator, and then I quickly, within a month or 2, I transitioned into XD and using XD from the past 1.5 years, and exceptionally great. So how do I use this? So there's a portal called Dribble, and there are multiple portals like this. So there is one portal called Dribble. What it helps us is if you have an account, or if you don't even have an account, you can go there. There's a platform called dribble.com/colors that's specifically for colors, and there's something called dribble.com. So what I usually do is go into dribble.com. Every day I go and scan out different types of images, different types of infographics published by users. And when you open the infographic, you see in the bottom of the Dribble page, you see a color palette created by Dribble. It's an automated tool. What it does is it tries to pick up all the colors that are shown on the page, and it tries to inform its own color palette. Now that's what the platform does. So what I usually do is I try to see what are the common backgrounds, what are the common highlight colors given out, and I try to store them in Adobe and try to reason which highlight color would be good with which background color. So that's really the end the topic for this. So how the color palette is done. We're done with selecting out the brand colors. How do we build a dashboard? So as I said, I'm more of a corporate designer. I stick to simple UIs and common UIs. So I came up with this version of dashboard for flatten the curve. Well, this was a very strong motto that my company also focuses on right now. We are using our official Twitter and Facebook and Instagram pages just for providing users the right information about flattening the curve. Now, to build the dashboard, I went in an approach that follow a very common Microsoft UI called Metro UI, which is a tile-based structure for visualizing information. The best reason for that is it provides flexibility that you can populate the dashboard with as much amount of information you want. There's no restriction to that, yet the UI will absolutely simple and sophisticated. I mean, the tiles structure themselves out in such a format that you don't really have to worry about how much amount of information is getting populated. So that's the flexibility you get here. So sticking on to common UI, then using your highlight color and the brand colors. So as I said about picking out the highlight and the background color. So I tried to highlight the positive way of what are the good causes that's happening. So we got the COVID data from Tableau, the portal, and there was a caveat telling that we are not able to reason out with the amount of confirmed cases right now, so we're eliminating that out of the data source. Now that was a really great pushback because we're not able to show any positive impact. We are just able to show the total cases and total people that passed away, and that was really bad. So I came up with the idea that, you know what, we can show people something positive, not only by showing numbers of how many people recovered, we can even show them that there were not much cases happening over the previous day, or the which is the best day that took place in the week or the month, sort of something like that. So I came up with the objective for that, and I wanted to highlight that information to a larger community. So how do I do that? So my highlight color is from the green. So usually it means it's positive, it's refreshing. From the wheel, it says that. So I have always a green and a grayer background and a white gradient for that, so that people get to see what's the underlying information in total. Yet the green really projects out what I really want to convey to the user, telling that you need not be worried because the curve is definitely going to flatten one day or the other. So it's really helpful to understand from this dashboard where immediately we can project out to the users what they want. So starting off with the image actually here, the idea for that is that people usually try to have a visual perspective to dashboards, than reading values and trying to analyze curves. It's better to see that we can we have a visual perception. So if you see the image at the back, it says curve flattened, but if you're not able to read the flattened part of it, it really means you're not able to, the curve is not flattened. So the idea behind the chart is that once the curve is completely flattened, you'll be able to read the text at the complete back. So it's a visual dashboard, yet there are numbers on that, and it's a simple UI, not much of overcrowding of the dashboard with KPIs. So brand colors really help me out, because if I'm presenting this information without sticking to a branding guide, a simple branding guide, I mean, I'm not talking about corporate branding, which are pages and pages, but this is a very simple branding technique where we select out a base color and a highlight color from the wheel, and then put it on the dashboard and try to highlight the information that we want to convey to the user. And then that really brings out, and the visual component really adds on to the fact that people try to depict the dashboard or interpret the dashboard in a visual sense. We don't really, every day I don't really need to come and see the trend, whether it's really flattening or not. I just need to see whether I can read the text at the back. So if I see this is for US, if I see this is for India, we're still not able to read that. But if I see for France, it's surprising that I'm somehow able to read the text at the back. That literally means that the curve is started to flatten. I mean, there's compared to this, I can say the numbers projecting, telling that the cases over the previous day are less, which is a positive sign. My best day was 17th of May. That means we are reducing fast. We are flattening the curve faster than we thought. yet it's not yesterday. So usually I assume people would want this to be yesterday, so that I get to know that yesterday was the best day every time, so that the curve is flattening fast. Even though if it's one case, it's still fine. So what it does is it finds the best K out of the entire data source that you have, and it tries to populate out telling that 17th of May is the best day for US because we had the highest amount of less cases over the previous day. And the top chart really depicts out the number of cases that were less over previous day, so that people get to see, okay, you know what, the curve is literally flattening, and it's flattening every day. So I see that with US. When I go to India, it's not that good sign. We had more number of cases, so it's 0. But the best day is 5th of May, which is a really good sign because it's near. It's not somewhere in the end of March or April, because this is very near. It doesn't really very date which is very nearby, and then really helps us out. But if you see for France, that's a really positive sign. It's 13th of April. Though it's 13th of April, I'm completely able to read the flattened sign. That really means that the curve is really flattening out. Well, I think that's it from my end. So I'll stop my presentation over here and take on for Q&A if there's something. Over to you, Mark.
Thanks so much, Praveen. That was fantastic. I love hearing all about the colors, particularly the color wheel was very useful, having the kind of emotional response along it.
Okay.
I think it's something many of us think we do, and then never really, or I think I do, and then I never actually am looking at a color wheel that tells me kind of what those colors might be. So I really thought that was really great. And the other thing, just as a comment, I also really liked how you spoke a bit about how you use that color really intentionally to draw out what you wanted your user base to kind of take away from the visuals. So looking at kind of that positivity. So those two tiles that were in green are the ones that you want them to remember, like good information. So I really like to hear kind of that intentional, like how you develop that visualization really intentionally with your hope of what your user was going to take out of it. So yeah.
Okay.
And so we got a number of different, number of people said that had some positive comments about your presentation, just really nice use of color, very visually exciting. Your dashboard is so creative and awesome. Thanks for sharing all your tools and approach.
Absolutely.
COVID-19 dashboard, very useful. We
Thank you.
have 2 questions. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to type them in. One person asked, which data source did you use for the COVID-19 viz?
Yeah, so I use the official Tableau data source. I initially started off with the Google Sheets, but the Google Sheets stopped working last week, so I had to move back to at least temporarily. I'm on an extract basis right now, but I do refresh the dashboard every 2 days or 3 days.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping the Google Sheets comes back, because that was really easy and to incorporate into the dashboards. But I think the AWS version is better as well. I've still not explored into that, but right now it's a extract basis. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah. For folks who don't know, the Tableau does have a whole hub of resources and data sources that they have on data.world. You can use a Google Sheet. There are some limitations to that currently with how much data it's populating. They also have direct downloads and things you can do that's there. The other question was, how do you make sure the colors are going to show exactly as you designed it across platforms or even worksheets? So this person says in their experience, sometimes it's impossible to make colors match among 2 different worksheets, even within different chart types or in the same dashboard. So do you have any techniques you use to ensure that when you develop kind of brand colors that those are showing up the same across?
It's more of, I wouldn't say that. So I'm more used to Adobe. So what Adobe does is it helps me to create out wireframes even before developing our dashboards. Now that's a thing that most people don't do because the effort in creating a wireframe and then realizing it in Tableau is twofold. So, but really what helps is the wireframe tool really helps me to visualize how every screen might look, how every aspect of my dashboard might look if I make a click on component, how it might highlight itself. I can visualize everything over there. I create the wireframe over there, individual components on the Adobe platform. Where in XD there is a feature called components, where we can create out components and then tag it to Adobe. So what happens is next time I open my dashboard, I see what are the most common components that I use, and I can re-import them. So, and the branding colors is also the same. Once I add in my branding colors to my Adobe, so it always retains that and helps me to pick out and construct out the wireframe for every instance of the click that the user can make on a screen. So that so usually I build like 10 different screens for a dashboard and try to visualize in every aspect how the user might visualize the dashboard, and then conceptualize it in Tableau. So it's a dual effort always. So with that, it's very easy to bring about. Yeah.
It's impressive. That does take a lot of extra work.
Yep.
That's a good result.
That's
right?
that's why. Absolutely. I mean, I recently saw your blog regarding Figma. So that's also a beautiful tool. But I'm more of an Adobe guy. I'm really into image processing and how images render and dashboards render for people. So yeah, Adobe really helps me in that. I do have a paid version, so yeah.
I was going to say, for those who don't have Adobe, Figma, as you just mentioned, is a free tool online. I started using it. In fact, I'm using it right now for my project help this month. So
absolutely, yeah. Cool. So
thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Praveen. All right. Let's see. So next up we have Amar. Let me introduce him. All right. So Amar is a business intelligence manager at Lloyd Banking Group in London, where he advises and supports stakeholders with their data visualization and reporting initiatives. He has a background in regulatory compliance, risk management, and data analytics gained across banking and asset management industries. And Amar has been using Tableau since 2016 and joined Tableau Public in the second half of 2019. And he enjoys participating in a number of community projects, including Makeover Monday, Project Health Viz, and the SDG Viz project, which is the Sustainable Development Goals project. So, and Amar's gonna be talking about a recent Teladoc health stock price visualization that he did using some really great set actions. So I think this will be a really useful, another useful bit, presentation, a little more technical. So Amar, whenever you are ready, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. So hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. I should start by saying thank you for having me here today as part of the healthcare user group. I primarily work in banking, so I'm quite new to healthcare. So this has been a real eye-opener in terms of how Tableau and the community is working in a different industry. So as per the introduction, my name is Amar Singh. I work as a business intelligence manager at Lloyd's Banking Group. And prior to that, I was working as a consultant for a Big Four consultancy firm. So a lot of my background relates to regulation and risk management. And that's where I learned how to use Tableau. So back in 2016. So a lot of my experiences with Tableau tend to relate more to web and customer analytics and for regulatory compliance. But I only got serious with Tableau Public towards the later end of last year. So it's been a really good opportunity to try and experiment with different styles of visualizations, different features that we don't tend to use day to day in our workplace, and just to see how we can visualize different data sets. For example, the one I'm presenting today on Teladoc Health Inc. So I'm going to be talking about this dashboard here. So this was for the May's Project Health Viz, and it's about telemedicine. So this was new to me in terms of the industry, and it was great to find out that such an industry exists and to work with financial data. So what I'm going to talk about is the design and the inspiration. Some of the features, so having the line chart filter, the candlestick chart at the bottom, and some of the other worksheets on the right hand side, so the prices and how that all interacts. And if you wanted to find out the data source, I've added in some hyperlinks there at the bottom. So just in terms of the design, so I have I guess, a list of ideas that I want to try out in Tableau Public, just wait for the right opportunity to do so. And having seen some good examples in recent weeks using set actions in the community, I thought that would be a great idea to try them out. So in one of the Makeover Mondays, Samuel Parsons and Andy Krubel both posted visualizations which use set actions. On the bottom left, when you hover over the lines, there was a ability to zoom in onto some of the dates, and that was a cool feature. So you hover over a particular date and it zooms in, and this was created by Samuel Parsons. And then with Andy Krubel's viz in the middle, there's a way to select a certain date range, which updates the numbers that you see in the top row. And similarly, on the bottom right-hand side, Rahul Singh posted his submission for the Project Health Viz, which also uses similar functionality. So you're able to select a particular date range, and that automatically updates some of the numbers there. And I thought this was be a great idea to try this for this month's Project Health Viz. And I'd also wanted to keep things a bit more simple and minimalist. I think I've had a tendency in the past to try and put a lot of information onto a dashboard. I think this is a good challenge to try and keep it simple in a way. So this here is the visualization. So it's the background itself was created using Figma. So this is a sort of free online tool that lets you create backgrounds and images. And then there are 5 components. So one being the line chart, which drives the rest of the dashboard. There's a zoomed in candlestick chart, which I'll try and show a demo of as well. It was the second time I'd created a candlestick chart, so it was quite fun to make again. And then there are 3 other worksheets which just show either the pricing of the current price or the prices for the date ranges which have been selected, and then a parameter just to filter the line chart. So if you didn't want to see 5 years or 3 years worth of stock prices, you can narrow that down to show a few months or a year. And before I just go into this example, so this was the Figma background. So it's all web-based, and to be fair, I could have made this in Tableau, but I'd really like the rounded corners and just being able to design a layout before I use it into a dashboard. So this is a rectangular view with a side panel. So sometimes I tend to put information icons on my dashboards, but I think with this one, I wanted the information to be quite present on the screen. So they were just to show how to use the dashboard, a way for users to understand where they can interact with it. So selecting the date range and then providing an introduction to what the company is and what the actual industry itself is as well. So having it visible on screen was a different approach I would normally take, but I think it just added to some of the usability. And then just 2 tricks I have with Figma. So if you haven't used it before, it's quite easy and intuitive to use. You can use shapes and rectangles to draw out your layout. And then you can also add in a plugin. So one of the plugins I like to use is called From CSS. So there'll be a number of sites where you can use to, I guess, build elements. So one is Pneumorphism.io, and that's been used quite often recently in terms of some dashboard designs. And they provide you with CSS code. So instead of typing items in manually by selecting and amending your shape properties, you can import the code in, which helps save a bit of time. And the second tip I have for Figma is when you export your work, I tend to export it at a much higher resolution. So there's a number here when you on the export screen, and I tend to export it at 2 to 4 times the size that it shows. I just find that in Tableau Public, it renders much better, much sharper, as opposed to its original size, which tends to look quite blurry. And just have some examples on screen here of some other designs I've made in Figma. So it's very open in terms of what you can do. And I just find it great to be able to build out designs and layouts for your dashboards. It does take some planning, so I probably wouldn't use it too often in a workplace environment just because of the changes that might need to come through. But adding in some sort of background layouts might help in that respect. And then set actions. So one of the functionality of this dashboard is using set actions to drive changes in other parts of the dashboard. I haven't used them that often on Tableau Public, And I think just wanted to recap. So they just allow you to create subsets of data based on some criteria. And the set action itself allows you to update the values of a set based on selections you've made on a worksheet. This dashboard was made before the new Tableau version 2020.2 was released. So there's been some additional set action capability that's been introduced. And there was a Workout Wednesday challenge, which allowed us to explore that. So I highly recommend checking that out if you wanted to explore set actions further. And on this dashboard, set actions are used in two capacities. So one is to select the date range and zoom in onto the chart below. And the second is to select a single point on the line chart and create a 14-day boundary on either side. The 14-day boundary itself was just hard-coded, but you could use a parameter to allow the user to specify how far a range they want to see. So before I go into sort of a live demo, I just want to talk about the dates and some of the prerequisites to get everything working. So the first was to create a date range parameter, and this is for the line chart. And what this does is allows you to specify how much of a range you want to see before you zoom in further. And so this first you create a parameter, and then having a filter just reflects on if you select a month, then just subtract the month from your current date, and then just show that range. And this itself will drive, I guess, the first part of the interactivity. The second step is to identify the minimum and maximum dates. So to create a reference band on the line chart and to specify the start and end dates, I had to think about two sets of dates. The first is a user selection. So when you select the entire range on the line chart, the set itself needs to populate, and therefore you want to extract the minimum date and the maximum date. However, if you select just one item on the line chart, you want to create a boundary. So for this one, I just subtracted 14 days and added 14 days on either side. So for example, if I selected May the 15th, the minimum date would be May the 1st and the maximum date would be May the 29th. And then this gives two sets of options depending on how the user wants to interact with the dashboard. And then the third is to create a date range filter. So what this is doing is saying, if I've selected just one point on the line chart, then my minimum and my maximum dates are going to be identical. Therefore, I need to use the single selection dates, which creates that 14-day boundary on either side. However, if they're not identical, then I can widen that. So this allows that functionality to be used depending on how the user wants to interact. And then finally, the reference band dates. So similar functionality to the previous slide. If I've selected just one point on the graph, then I only want to show the date with minus 14 days, plus 14 days. And if I don't, then I want to show the full band. And this will be applied to the line chart and allows you to zoom in later on. So if I now go into the dashboard, so this is the dashboard that was shown at the start of the slide. So just to show a demo, when I select a large range, the bottom chart updates as well as the prices on the right hand side. And when I select one item, I create a 14-day boundary on either side. And you have a line chart with some tooltips to show the daily prices, and then the candlestick chart, which shows you the movements. So for the line chart, it's your sort of standard line chart with the closing price as the measure. And to create the reference bands, I simply dragged in this maximum date and minimum date into the details pane and created a reference band. So the reference band starts from the minimum date and it ends at the maximum date. And this just allows the users to see what they've selected. Without that, it will be difficult for them to know where the selection started and ended. And then the visible date range here is interacting with the parameter, which is the date range. So if I select 6 months, the time frame shrinks. But if I select 2 years, it would expand just based on that. And then the candlestick chart. So this itself, I've not used widely before, but it's very easy to make. It's made up of 2 Gantt charts. So to do a very quick demo, if you just take your dates and drag it to the columns pane and start by using the low. So the low and high prices are the traded prices during the day, and then the open and close will be the open and close prices. And all four pieces of information will join together to build the candlestick chart. So by changing this to a Gantt chart and sizing it by the differences, so to understand whether the high price was greater or lower than the low price, that allows you to build the length of that. And having the visible date range available makes it much easier to narrow down. And secondly, just to sort of format it slightly as well. So we do not want it to be a main feature, just to be more succinct in the background. And then the closing price works in a similar way, just to have your open price on a dual axis. And you want to size it by the difference between the closing price and the opening price, and just resizing some of the elements here. So one is much smaller than the other. And then finally, the colors are based around whether or not the closing price was greater than the opening price. So if the stock finished higher, then it's positive and therefore should be green. And if it lost price, then it's red and therefore was negative. And there you have your candlestick chart. And with a bit of formatting, that becomes what we saw previously. And then just the tooltips were left. So the tooltips themselves just showed you the dates of what was selected, the high, open, low, and closing prices, the spread, meaning the close price minus the open price, and then the market capitalization. So this would be the closing price multiplied by the volume of shares available. The arrows themselves, I use the character map. So using the Windows character map, you can select two arrows to implement in the default properties of your fields. So if I just choose a field here and I go to default properties, if I go to custom fields at the moment, it's empty. But if you create a custom setting here and then go back to the bottom item, you'll see that this has been populated, and the up arrow will go on the left-hand side. And there's a sort of line break here with a semicolon, and then your negative values sit here. So you can add in a down arrow just to show the users a bit more visually whether the price has been increasing or decreasing. I think some people tend to use calculated fields just to color the arrows, but for this viz, I tend to kept it simple. And then finally, the other sheets were just to show the user what dates were selected based on the minimum and maximum dates, the prices, so which, based on the date selection, what were the average prices in terms of the closing price, opening price, and the market cap, and then the current price. So ignoring all of the other date selections, so just what is the most recent price available, which I use using a level detail calculation. And then finally, just to place everything onto the dashboard and to add the action. So there is a set action on the dashboard that takes in the selections from the top line chart and filters the bottom candlestick chart and also the items on the right hand side. And it takes the stock history, which is the line chart, as a source, and it updates the set here and it assigns all the values. I haven't used the new functionality here because this will add multiple values into each one, which will increase the range to a point where I don't want them to be increased. So allowing the user to select a range or a point works better for me using the traditional set actions. And performance on Tableau server has also been quite good just because it is simplified data set. So it wasn't too complex a data set to use. I'm not too sure how it would work with much larger data sets or more complex data sets, but if I do the selection here, it tends to work just as expected and high performed on desktop. So I think that was the presentation in terms of using set actions to create the stock price issue dashboard and to be able to filter across to the next using dashboard interactivity. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks so much, Amar. Yeah, this was one of those dashboards I just thought had so much great interactivity, and I think very useful, especially in any business setting. But I think, in healthcare, we're often looking at different things, obviously over time, and being a lot of data we have. So being able to kind of do these selections and drilling in using a very slick kind of user interface, I think is really helpful versus the old kind of way of drop-down filters and things like that. So that's really awesome. We have a couple questions. So one was asking about, a couple people were asking about Figma particularly and how you use that in your visualizations. And does that mean that when you have an image from Figma, do you have to use all floating containers over that image?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the drawbacks, I think, of using Figma. So if I take away this image, you'll see it's just everything is floating. So you do have to spend a bit more time trying to line everything up and make sure it fits. And I guess there's a second downside in terms of if you use this in a business context and requirements changed, then would you be able to go back and change things again and again? So I think, yeah, you do have to add it to background image and use floating containers. But one thing I do like is it does force me to think about design. I guess I've traditionally built traditional dashboards, and having seen great examples in the community recently, there is a way to bring in more visual elements to dashboards, which can be quite subtle in a way. And I think with Figma, it's great to just start out for free. So this is a free tool if you want to experiment and play around with it. Adding in either background images or shapes to use in visualizations is a great way to start. I think Praveen mentioned Adobe XD as well. It's not something I've used personally, but again, it's an alternative to use. I think just want to add, the dashboard itself is downloadable on my page if you want to download it and have a play around.
Awesome. No, that's great to know as well. So there was a lot of great comments. People think this is awesome. Would love to see your slide deck if you're able to share it. So we can, if you are able to provide it, we can get that up onto the Health Hub page so people can see it there. Folks thought it was very interactive, open their mind to new possibilities. Another question was about the candlestick chart, just wondering if that was similar to a box and whisker plot chart, which I believe that would probably be yes, but.
I think it shows different types of data because it's on the box and whisker plot, you're going to be showing a range of values and I guess the outliers and try to identify those. Whereas I guess with a candlestick chart, you're showing on a day's trading what was the opening price and the closing price. So this stock here opened at this bottom range and then it increased in price and closed here at $76. And it also shows the high and low traded prices. So during the day, there will be fluctuations in the daily prices. And this thin line just shows you what those fluctuations were. I think
we can't see your screen right now, Amar, but I believe you're saying the inner band that is either red or green is the, is that the opening and close, and then the other outer bands is the range from the high and low. Is that correct?
So with the candlestick chart, if I focus on this item here, what it's telling us is that the stock opened at this price, which will be, it's on the tooltip. It opened at this price and then it increased in price during the day and closed at $76, whereas it opened at $72. And this thin line will show you the intraday pricing. So it had fluctuated throughout the day. It reached as high as $78 and as low as $72. And those four pieces of information make up that candlestick chart. I think with a box and whisker plot, it might show a similar type of information, but it probably doesn't fit within a financial dashboard type context.
No, that's a great explanation. It's really two different ranges. You're showing a high and low and the open and close in on top of each other, so you can see those differences. Whereas a box and whisker is a distribution, and so that box is actually a middle inter range of that middle 50%. So it's a little different in terms of the analysis of what you're showing, where this isn't showing distribution per se, it's just showing range. That's a good question. Someone else asked, had you considered using blue and red instead of green and red for the color blindness, or what particular? I saw a number of folks do green and red. I don't know if that's relatively standard in the financial community or with stock prices. So just curious. Someone asked about that.
I think I just defaulted to green and red being good and bad. I guess I didn't take considerations into other user requirements. But I think it's a good point if there are better colors out there to support a much wider range of users, and they could be blue and red or colorblind friendly palettes. I guess for this one, I didn't go that deep into the thinking, but it's a good point.
Yep. Yeah. And lastly, have you ever used Figma for work purposes, or just using it in kind of Tableau public space?
I haven't used Figma for work purposes. I have, if I just go back to my PowerPoint, so this Google community report I have shared internally just for fun, just to host it and give an introduction into Neumorphism to my colleagues, and as part of a knowledge share that we do. So every 2 weeks we have a meeting where we share knowledge, tips and tricks, challenges we've overcome, and we discuss how we can use that within our workplace. So if you're able to do that, I highly recommend it. And I've hosted this, but we don't use Figma or any design tools in this capacity. I think it will, again, be quite challenging in a way if requirements had changed and how much time you're going to spend, who has access, and other factors. But I think it's good in terms of just creating the outline or layout if you wanted to take it further.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I can say that I am in the process of trying it out with a client. Now, they haven't seen it yet, so we'll see how that goes. But one of the things I could see a use case for is some of the more simpler aspects of the visualization. So say a side panel that may not change because it's always going to be there in each view or in a main view, and that's not part of the charts, for example, or, you know, a simple, you know, line across the top that's going to be used to house your title on top of that. Like some of the simple elements you can create, and if the whole size of the dashboard is going to remain the same, then that might be a way to introduce it into a work setting. Is maybe not into the level of like this example here where you have all your charts in case that might change, but like say that side panel, that's going to stay the same. Try that.
Yeah, and if you make infographics or I guess one of dashboards for conferences or meetings, that might be a great use case to try that out.
Awesome. I think that was all of the questions. Thank you so much. If there's anything else in the chat, I don't think so. Mark, but thank you so much, Amar and Praveen and Christian, who was dropped off, for sharing your presentations and insights and knowledge about how to create really well-designed and engaging dashboards. Really appreciate all of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. I think that it, Mark. Do you need anything else?
Yeah, I think that's it for anyone who's still here. I know we've got about 300 or so. Please feel free to reach out if you or anyone at your organization would be interested in presenting at a future Health Tug. We're always looking for new presentations and things like that. You can connect with any of us, so myself, Lindsay, Simon, or Nicole through either Twitter, LinkedIn, or you can connect to our Health Tug on Twitter. And we also do have our community forum page that you're welcome to present in. We do try to do these about every 2 months, so be on the lookout for a future one. But I think that's it, so we can probably wrap up if you don't have anything else on your end, Lindsay.
I was just going to say, for folks who have asked about the recording, that will be shared on Tableau's YouTube page, and then we have our own on the forums page. I know we've shared in the past presentations and posted them there, so folks can take a look at the slide deck. So for those who presented, if you're open to sharing your slide deck, you can shoot us that through the email, and we should be able to get that up there for the participants to check out. Awesome. And that's it.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.